There's a man who sits quietly in the corner of every room, watching everything, saying almost nothing. He answers questions with 3 words when everyone else uses 30. He seems distant, detached, like he's somewhere else entirely. Most people call that cold. They think he doesn't care, or that he's arrogant, or that something in him is switched off. But psychology tells a very different story. Because what looks like distance is actually one of the most powerful minds most people will ever misread. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how the INTJ mind works, why he retreats, and what he's really doing in all that silence. And you'll see why the very thing everyone mistakes for coldness is the same thing that makes him extraordinary. You've met this man before. In every era, every culture, every family, there's one of him. The kid who took the machine apart to see how it worked. The teenager who preferred a book to a party. The adult who has strong opinions but only shares them when he's sure. He's the one who plans 3 steps ahead while everyone else reacts. The one who'd rather be right than be liked. The one whose silence somehow feels louder than other people's noise. This is the INTJ, one of the rarest personality types in the world, less than 2% of people. The psychiatrist Carl Jung first mapped the mental machinery behind this type, the inner world of intuition and thinking that runs quietly beneath the surface. Later, the psychologist David Kiersey gave the INTJ a name that stuck, the Mastermind. We're going to walk through 7 things psychology reveals about how this man thinks, feels, and loves, and why almost everyone gets him wrong. Let's start with the one that surprises almost everyone. When an INTJ goes quiet, he isn't shutting down. He's running the numbers. Carl Jung described the INTJ's dominant mental process as introverted intuition, a way of thinking that works underground, out of sight, connecting patterns the person can't even explain yet. While others think out loud, the INTJ thinks inward, testing entire scenarios in his head before a single word leaves his mouth. So the silence you find unsettling? It's not absence. It's a mind so busy that speaking would only slow it down. To him, talking before thinking feels reckless. He'd rather give you 1 careful sentence that's true than 10 easy ones that aren't. Watch him in a heated argument. While everyone else is reacting, he goes still. That stillness isn't weakness, it's him choosing his ground before he stands on it. And that's the paradox people miss. The quietest man in the room is often the one who has thought the most. But that inner processing is just the surface. What is his mind actually built to do? That's where it gets fascinating. The INTJ doesn't just see what's happening. He sees why it's happening and what it will become. David Kiersey called this type the mastermind because of exactly this trait, an almost relentless drive to understand the underlying structure of things. Where most people see isolated events, the INTJ sees a system, gears turning inside gears, causes leading to effects leading to consequences years away. It's why he plans. It's why he seems 10 steps ahead. He's not predicting the future by magic, he's tracing the logic of it. So when this man tells you something won't work, he isn't being negative. He's already watched it fail inside his head, weeks before it ever had the chance to. This is also why he hates busy work. If a task has no logic behind it, no purpose he can trace, it drains him faster than anything. Give him a real problem, though something tangled and hard, and he lights up. Complexity isn't a burden to this mind. It's a playground. Now here's where it gets a little more complicated, because this is the part people, and even the man himself, don't fully understand. The INTJ often comes across as certain. Sometimes uncomfortably so. But there's a difference between arrogance and calibration. Isabel Briggs Myers, who built the modern personality framework on Jung's ideas, placed the INTJ's decision-making on the thinking axis, meaning he trusts conclusions he has personally tested over opinions. He's simply been handed. His confidence isn't a feeling. It's the residue of 1,000 private arguments he's already had with himself. He questions his own ideas harder than any critic ever could. By the time he speaks with certainty, he's usually earned it. So when he disagrees with you, try not to hear an attack. To him, the truth matters more than being polite about it, and that's a strange kind of respect. The people who thrive around an INTJ figure this out fast. He doesn't want you to agree with him. He wants you to think to bring him something he hasn't already considered. And this next one? Most people close to an INTJ get it completely wrong. People assume the INTJ doesn't feel much. The truth is nearly the opposite. The Jungian analyst John Beebe mapped how each personality type ranks its mental functions, and for the INTJ, outward emotional expression sits near the very bottom of the stack. That doesn't mean the feeling isn't there. It means it runs deep and quiet, like an underground river rarely reaching the surface in words. He feels loyalty as fiercely as anyone. He just shows it through what he builds for you, protects for you, and quietly solves for you. So if a man like this never says the big emotional words, watch his hands instead of his mouth. The care was always there. It just chose a different language. And when he's hurt, he rarely shows it either. He retreats, goes quiet, and processes the pain alone before he ever lets it near the surface. Learn to read that withdrawal not as rejection, but as him doing the only thing he was ever taught to do, with a big feeling, carry it inward. If you're the kind of person who actually thinks about the people in your life, not just what they do, but what's happening underneath, and you're still here, that tells me something about you. It would mean a lot if you hit subscribe. We put out videos like this every week, real psychology explained in a way that finally makes sense. Here's the part that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Seeing further than everyone around you is not always a gift. Sometimes it's a weight. The psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi described flow, that state of total absorption where a person disappears into their work and time falls away. The INTJ lives there, but the same depth that makes his focus extraordinary can quietly wall him off from the people who love him. He carries plans no one asked to see. He solves problems no one knew existed. And often, he does it completely alone because explaining it would take longer than just doing it himself. There's a quieter danger too. When you're right often enough, you start trusting only yourself and slowly stop letting anyone else carry the weight with you. The hidden cost of a mind like this is simple and heavy. Being understood becomes rare. And a man who is rarely understood can start to believe that connection just isn't built for him. But this is the root underneath all of it. The INTJ wasn't born behind a wall. He built it, usually early and usually for a reason. Developmental psychology, going back to the work of John Bowlby on early attachment, shows how children learn what the world will and won't reward. For many future INTJs, the lesson landed hard and young. Emotions were messy and unreliable, but competence, being smart, being useful, being right, was safe. So the mind became the fortress. He learned to trust his own thinking because, at some point, it was the only thing he could fully count on. Self-reliance wasn't a choice. It was survival. And walls built that early don't come down on demand. They come down slowly, one small proof of safety at a time, for whoever is patient enough to keep showing up. So when this man keeps the world at a careful distance, understand what you're really seeing. Not a man who never needed anyone, a boy who once learned it was safer not to. Which brings us to the last one, and honestly, the most important. The INTJ does not give his trust easily. But when he does, it is total. Susan Cain, in her research on introverts, showed that the quiet ones aren't broken extroverts. They're a different kind of powerful, built for depth instead of breadth. The INTJ embodies this completely. He won't give you 100 shallow friendships. He'll give one or two people the whole map of his inner world. And the same mind that saw every way something could fail now spends itself imagining every way to keep you safe, steady, and building towards something that lasts. That's the strength hiding under the silence. Loyalty that doesn't waver. A mind that builds futures. A partner who, once he chooses you, quietly moves the world to keep his word. The man everyone called cold turns out to be one of the most devoted people you will ever know. You just have to be patient enough to earn the door. So the next time you meet a man who watches more than he speaks, who seems distant, certain, and impossible to read, you'll know what you're actually looking at. You're looking at a mind that never stops building. Someone who feels deeply but shows it in what he does, not what he says. Someone who learned young that thinking was safe, and love was a risk, and who is quietly waiting for a reason to take it. He isn't cold, he isn't broken, he's a mastermind built for depth, wired for the long game, and worth every ounce of patience it takes to truly know him. And the people who learn to read his language, they don't just meet him, they get to keep him. If you want to go deeper, I put together a video on the hidden strengths of introverted men that I think will hit just as hard. It's right here when you're ready.